So given their friendship, it might not be surprising that there's a familiar face in the crowd in the sketch. Hi, my name is Maddie, and I'm an intern here at the Wordsworth Trust, and today we're going to look at this sketch of Christ's triumphal entry into Jerusalem by Benjamin Haydon. So the completed painting is massive. It's about 396 centimeters by 457, and it's actually cemented onto the wall of a seminary in Cincinnati, Ohio. But we're very lucky to have this sketch here because it tells this very interesting story. Hayden was an artist contemporary to William Wordsworth, and they met in 1815 through a mutual friend, Sir George Beaumont, who was also an artist. And right away, Hayden and Wordsworth kind of clicked. They had this whirlwind friendship where within weeks, Hayden was creating Wordsworth's life mask, and they were sending each other letters, including some sonnets, one of which was addressed to Hayden directly. And in it, Wordsworth kind of talks about their calling as artists and says, "High is our calling, friend." Talking about this sort of drive to create. So given their friendship, it might not be surprising that there's a familiar face in the crowd in the sketch. So if you look closely, you can see that Wordsworth is the figure by the palm tree with his shaded face. Even though his face isn't included in this very brief sort of sketch, he's still recognizable by the arm across his chest and the downturned head that you see in the final composition. This is an image of Wordsworth that is not only seen in the final version of this painting, but also in other depictions of Wordsworth. So we know that Haydon's portrayal of Wordsworth is fairly accurate because William Hazlitt, when he wrote about My First Acquaintance with Poets, he says that Haydon's description of Wordsworth as the most like Wordsworth's drooping weight of thought and expression. And so that drooping weight is seen not only in the final product, but also in this preliminary sketch. So it's not surprising that Wordsworth was not the only person that Haydon put into this painting. Next to Wordsworth, we have Newton and Voltaire, and right above Wordsworth's head is the profile of John Keats, which leads to this sort of interesting moment. The painting took 6 years to finish, and at some point, before it was done, Haydon invited his friends over to look at its progress. And so it's this great moment in the history of Romanticism where we have an older William Wordsworth and a very young John Keats together with people like Thomas Monkhouse and Charles Lamb eating dinner together and interacting. Luckily, Benjamin Haydon recorded the story of this evening, which he called the Immortal Dinner. It's a very humorous account. Haydon was still feeling the effects of the drinks from dinner that night. At one point, Charles Lamb, who was also a little bit tipsy, was complaining to Haydon, asking why he included Newton in this painting, which was so religious. And Lamb and Keats both agree that Newton has taken away the poetry of a rainbow and reduced it to that of a prism. But it also leads to this great moment of these two generations of romantics interacting with each other. And that's why we're so lucky to have this, not only because this small sketch led to a monumental painting, but it also led to a monumental meeting of minds and romantics.